prevailing mood among our members when the deal was struck was probably more one of relief than happiness. We avoided the worst case scenario of falling back on WTO terms with tariffs, quotas, and a lot of the disruption that would come with at the borders with that process. And that left a constructive basis for future relations. But at the same time, we can't escape the fact that the UK became a third country outside the EU, outside the single market, and outside a customs union. So there were inevitably going to be problems, and we would no longer have frictionless trade. So happy, no, but a basis from which to move forward.
James Sibley, what about small businesses here in the UK? What's changed for them over the last 100 days?
Well, small firms have seen the largest change to the UK's trading relationship with Europe and with the rest of the world in half a century. So a lot has changed. I mean, we've now left the European Union, we've left the single market and the customs union, and that has broad implications. So that now means for small firms trading in goods, customs checks. It means new requirements on food safety. There are new arrangements on VAT. So really, with cross-border trade, everything has changed. But you expected all of that, didn't you? We did, yes. So we knew that the government was negotiating a free trade agreement-based trading relationship with the EU. There were some things that were still unknown until the very last minute, such as on rules of origin, which is another thing that small firms now have to contend with. And what do you make of the official figures of trade? I'm looking at them now between the UK and EU. They do make for pretty grim reading, but are they an accurate picture, do you think? So the feeling is that, yes, they are quite dire, and yes, they are quite accurate from what we hear from our membership. So the big concern for us at the moment is those small firms who are now faced with the new requirements on paperwork, new regulatory requirements and so on, and they're just put off from exporting. So we are hearing anecdotally quite a significant number of small firms who are looking at the new arrangements and saying, if this carries on for much longer, I'm not going to be able to continue doing business with the EU. And that's a big concern. So yes, the figures we feel do paint a picture of what's going on at the moment. Are all these, do you think, Ben Butters, do you think all these are teething problems or are there fundamental issues that you think still need to be ironed out? I don't really agree with the notion of teething problems. That would suggest that things are going to improve, but they won't, because we're facing major structural changes here. This isn't a temporary situation. Of course, there's an adaptation period from everyone, and we need to improve certain aspects of the implementation, and that's why we would hope to have some more clarity fairly soon about the different committees and subcommittees within the agreement that are going to discuss the implementation. But fundamentally, this is a very different set of rules, and it's going to be with us for years to come. I don't think that the economic settlement is going to be renegotiated at any time soon. So businesses need to adapt, and the authorities in charge of the different processes need to adapt as well. And James, I take it you'd agree with that? I do agree. Like Ben says, there is an adaptation period as businesses, hauliers, logistics firms, even the border inspectors get used to the new rules. But the reality is that there are now significant structural changes in the UK-EU trading relationship. And that is due to leaving the single market and customs union, and that's a permanent feature that small firms in particular are going to have to adapt to. And Ben Butters, are there particular sectors among your members who seem to be disproportionately affected, do you think? What help do they need? Well, there are certainly some sectors that are more exposed to these changes than others. We're hearing from the food sector, the automotive sector, health and drugs and pharmaceuticals. These are sectors that are traditionally very heavily interlinked between the UK and the EU. But the broader message we get that small and medium-sized enterprises are being affected disproportionately, and they need help. They need information. They need guidance. There are small businesses out there which have never completed a customs form before in their entire existence, and now within the space of a few weeks, that's become central to some of their activities.
So they need help with that. They need advice on complying with rules of origin and guidance about movement of people. That's the real thing for us, to help the smaller businesses who, of course, are hit harder because they don't have a whole team behind them who can absorb the new requirements.
So apart from information, James, what else needs to be done now to make this transition go more smoothly, perhaps?
So, I mean, it really is just information that we can provide. I think lots of small firms will be encountering customs for the first time. They'll be encountering rules of origin for the first time. I've spoken to many companies who are doing brilliant things to adapt to this new situation. But there are many others who, like I say, they're learning really as they go, and we need to make sure that we can make it as easy as possible for them to understand this new environment that they're trading within.
But that was, James, in some ways always going to happen, wasn't it? Because after such a long relationship, any divorce is difficult.
Yes, it is very difficult. And unfortunately, some of this is really only going to be worked through with time. There's going to need to be time to adapt to the new relationship. And like I say, some of the changes haven't fully come in yet, such as the UK import checks. So there's a while to go with this yet.
But James, the EU has launched legal action against the UK over the Brexit arrangements for Northern Ireland. How much of that is a concern to you and your members?
It's a concern for two reasons. The first is that if this legal challenge results in elements of the TCA being suspended or results in the imposition of tariffs, then it's often small firms that essentially pay for that because their competitiveness is affected. Secondly, the Northern Ireland Protocol, the operation of it is a concern. We need both sides really to have a dialogue on how to make the protocol work for, in particular, small firms in Northern Ireland who are finding it quite difficult at the moment. We need to see that dialogue and that constructive dialogue emerge in the coming weeks, with both sides committed to making the protocol work. And
Ben, would you say Northern Ireland is perhaps the last big hurdle to cross?
Certainly, that's where the most where there's least clarity at the moment, and we're really watching closely the developments about the unilateral decision by the UK to delay checks. So that really does need to be clarified, and does create a certain amount of caution among businesses, because they want to be sure that the terms of this complexly negotiated agreement are fulfilled and complied with, and any diversification from those rules undermines confidence about the agreement in general.
The Remainers in Britain predicted pretty much economic meltdown, economic Armageddon if the UK left the EU. Do you see any signs of that happening? First of all, you, Ben.
Well, as one of your previous questions implied, there's a mixture of factors at the moment. The economy is in a very bad state. We can't deny that. But that clearly the pandemic is factor number one in that. And from an EU perspective, Brexit is of less consequence, but nonetheless, it doesn't help. That's for sure. But businesses are adaptable. They've adapted for decades, for centuries. That's part of what being in business is about, adapting to situations. So there's not going to be economic meltdown, but we just need to make this work as well as we can, because at the moment we really need everything to be as favourable as possible for businesses, given the pandemic that they're having to deal with as well, and all the implications that has.
And James?
I'd agree with a lot of what Ben has just said. I think Armageddon is far too strong a word. The UK and the EU will continue to have a solid trading relationship in the future. At the moment, we're in a very rocky patch. Like I say, we've just undergone the largest change in the UK's trading relationship with the EU and the world in half a century. And there's a lot to work through, and there's a lot for companies to adapt to. But like Ben says, small firms in particular are nimble and adaptable, and they'll do their best to carry on doing business with the EU in the future.
James, have you seen an upside to all of this? And I know that's a difficult question when we are in the middle of a global pandemic. But was Brexit a good decision economically, do you think?
We've seen some members who've used this as an opportunity. So some businesses are confronting the challenges and new regulatory barriers, for instance, that have been introduced by investing in EU premises or warehouses, creating new jobs. And they tried to really, confront the challenge head on and get over it. And we also see other companies who, they made the investment in customs procedures, and once they're set up for that, it means they're also pretty well set up for non-EU trade as well. So we've seen small firms look to global markets as well as the EU. And so there are some small firms who are seeing opportunities in this. Overall, there are a lot of difficulties for many small companies, but there are some who are really trying to make the best of this quite delicate situation.
James Sibley, Head of International Affairs at the UK's Federation of Small Businesses, and Ben Butters, thank you very much, CEO of Eurochambers, and thank you both for joining us on The Agenda.